Hey Edgar, I'm reading one of your horror stories in Braille. Something bad is gonna happen. I can just feel it.
Can you tell me if there's another YouTube channel that has a crow that tells dad jokes? I don't think so. Welcome to the office of Demonology. I'm Dr. J, retired demon hunter and knower of things, looking a little bit like Grizzly Adams. Probably need to shave. Thanks for joining me. Bookworms, issue number 5, which is the rock and roll horror issue. Boom! It's available on our Etsy store. It is bookwormshorror.etsy.com. I'll put that in the show notes. A lot of great things in here. We even have the nice centerfold. Got a word search. Great artwork. And we actually have like 4 horror fiction stories in this issue. This is our biggest issue yet. And I did an article on backwards masking. That actually is because of a book I just read, I think last month. And it probably was in last month's book wrap-up. Definitely pick it up. Bookworms Horror Zine, issue 5, rock and roll horror. And the Halloween issue will be out in the fall. That one is going to be witch and witchcraft theme. I'm putting this out a little bit late just because I didn't have time. But let's do it right now, the June reading wrap-up. And my first book that I read was The Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I knew this book existed for a very long time, and I know that Joe Hill like totally loves this book. Even Stephen King, they're both like on the back of the book. I gave it to Regina St. Clair to read, so I don't have it here to show you, but I'll put it up here. The cover should be up there, or up there, whatever. This book focuses on a main character who basically has no business going to Yale, but gets in trouble with the law. And the powers that be get her into Yale because she becomes part of a house that watches over the other houses that are into a weird supernatural occult stuff. It follows the main character learning all about this stuff that happens. It's basically like all the rich people who run the world have these cults that they belong to, or these houses that they belong in Yale, that some of them they do like weird rituals where they can guess what the stock market's going to be like. Other ones they can go into portals and go other places. I mean, it's so wild. And our main character, she also has the ability to see ghosts, and it's done in a really interesting way, the way she sees ghosts. I find it fascinating. I fell in love with this book. I also fell in love with the author. There is a sequel to this book called Hellbent, which I just started reading. I'm loving that as well. This is a book I just fell in love with the characters, and I love when they take a story set in the real world. So it's set in Yale. They make up this fantasy that maybe actually could be true. Who knows? But really loved Leigh Bardugo's. I highly recommend reading it if you're into horror. If you're not, I still think you dig it, but it's definitely a horror novel. And Joe Hill and Stephen King, even though I see their names on the back of a lot of books, this one they were right about. Great book. And I think Leigh Bardugo, before this, like Ninth House is her first adult book. She did a lot of young adult stuff. This is the first one that came out that was adult. I've never read anything else by her. She did write a Wonder Woman novel. I picked that up at the thrift store because I'm like, well, let's see how it is there, because I think she's a great writer. Will she write a great Wonder Woman book? Let's find out. I'm sure when I read that, I'll do a wrap up with that book. So number 1, Leigh Bardugo, Ninth House, top of my list of June, like probably my best book I read in June. Pick it up. You'll love it. Next up, The Anxious Generation. This is by Jonathan Haidt. This is nonfiction. The subtitle is How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness. Again, this is a must read for everyone. It really goes into how social media damages people, but specifically the younger generation, Gen Z, is being messed up because of, and then the stats are in here. So I know I was talking with the Gen Z generation recently, because I work with a lot of them, and they suggested, no, everybody's had this mental illness. It's just now it is being reported more. Like people are more open to talk about it. So therefore the numbers are higher because people are saying that. However, I brought it up to them that the numbers of suicide rates, especially in young girls, jumps significantly. So that's not like something that you can say, well, it was always there, because we know how many people died in the past. And then when that number, like 2012 hit, and that number just skyrocketed, it's definitely something that shows it's different this time from the past. I absolutely think people should read this, especially if you have kids. You should read it. There are a lot of suggestions in it to help you navigate technology with yourself, and if you have kids, with your kids. Lots of great suggestions. Can't recommend this book enough. Okay, next up, A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. If you want to hear my thoughts and Regina Sinclair, my co-host on the Right Brain Cafe, talk about this book, take a listen. I think it's our last episode. It's the episode that's about structure. It's only maybe the last episode or a couple episodes ago. And we talk a lot about this book because we had a weird synergy happen where I was listening to that book on Audible. Not on Audible, actually Cloud Library. It's a free way of getting audiobooks. So I'm listening to the book. I had no idea Regina was reading that book. She had no idea I was listening to the book. I didn't have it on Goodreads, so nobody knew I'm reading this book. I'm actually really enjoying the book. And then I go over to Regina's and she says to me, have you read this book? And my back was turned. And I had this weird moment where I knew what she was going to say next. I knew it was going to be Paul Tremblay's Head Full of Ghosts. And I turned and she said that. And I'm like, holy crap. I knew you were going to say that. But not only that, yes, I'm also reading it. She hated it. But you can hear her thoughts of why she hated it and my thoughts of why I enjoyed it, and things that I do agree with her criticisms about it in the podcast, The Right Brain Cafe. So check that out. Regina just gave me his other book. Regina gave me this, the horror movie book, Paul Tremblay, that just came out. Great cover, by the way, and very nice design of this book. She did not like this book at all. I think she probably hated this book more than A Head Full of Ghosts. But I'm going to give it a try and see if I liked it, because I didn't hate A Head Full of Ghosts. It was a fun read. I agree with some of her criticisms, but I found the book very fun. We both came really late to the book, A Head Full of Ghosts. It's been out for a while, and it's weird that we both ended up reading it at the same time and finishing it at the same time. Very strange. I will check this one out and let you know in the future what I thought of it. Have you read Paul Tremblay's Head Full of Ghosts? Have you read Horror Movie? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. All right, next up, Murder and Magic by Randall Garrett. Great cover art, by the way. Love it. All right, so this is weird. I didn't realize it was like a bunch of short stories connected by a detective. So it's kind of like Sherlock Holmes with some supernatural elements, and they use magic to solve crimes. And it's strange because it's kind of like how you have crime scene investigators come in and they use things to reveal DNA and stuff like that. They kind of do this throughout the book, but with magic. I don't remember. I think I might have gave it 3 stars. It was strange because also the timeline, it's not like set in our world. It says, welcome to a world where Richard the Lion-Hearted did not die in the year 1199, but went on to found the mightiest and most stable empire in history, where the laws of extrasensory perception have been codified, but those of physics remain unsuspected, where magic is a science and science is an art. When you're reading this, stuff that happens like in 1969, it's not our unit, it's like an alternate universe where magic, and it's set, it's really strange. I think it was hard to get into because it played with a lot of things when it came to rewriting the history and having this magic and interesting. I don't think I'd recommend it though, but great cover art. Am I right? Get ready for the Mind F. The Simulation Hypothesis by Rizwan Virk. I think that's how you say it. It says at the top, an MIT computer scientist shows why AI, quantum physics, and Eastern mystics agree we are in a video game. This will mess with your head. This is nonfiction. It really makes you wonder if we are currently living in a simulation. And honestly, I think we could be. There's a great chance that we are living in a simulation, and this book has convinced me that if we're not, we're at a place where we're about to get into with Apple's Vision Pro and having that, if that gets to a place where you can't really detect whether what you're seeing is real and you start to feel things, then that means we'll eventually get to a place where we can create the feeling of being in a video game, create characters that feel like in a video game. And if that's the case, then what's to say there isn't a group of aliens or species or humans that already did it, and therefore we are the ones in the video game? It's so mind trippy. It will mess you up. Some people don't even want to read this. I've suggested, and they're like, I don't even want to know because it's just too freaky. Super, super freaky nonfiction book. If you're willing to get your head messed up for a little bit, great read. And finally, How the Barbarian Invasions Shaped the Modern World, the Vikings, Vandals, Huns, Mongols, Goths, and Tartars who raised the old world and formed the new. Basically, this book is a lot of people killing a lot of people. The history of the world is soaked in blood. And basically, this just goes through and tells you. Now, I wouldn't probably recommend it. I would probably try to get more specific stories on maybe Genghis Khan or something like that, because this is very much a shortened version of all that history, and it becomes redundant. There's a group of barbarians. They go sack a town. They do awful things to everybody. They sometimes stay there, they sometimes don't. And because of all the kind of craziness, we end up having certain languages and countries because of all the craziness of the bloodshed and the wars and the things that were going on. So, interesting, not a bad read, but I think there's probably better books. Yeah, on the back it says, relive the slaughter and destruction of the barbarians. And that's pretty much what it is, just story after story of slaughter and destruction, and telling you these things. And it's a great starter. Like if you want to start getting into this kind of story and find out the history and maybe then go to better books, maybe this is for you. I had this because I think my father-in-law was getting rid of it, and I was like, oh, I'll read it. And so that's why I have it. So that's my June reading wrap-up. I will probably be a little late doing July's reading wrap-up because July's almost over. But I had a great time reading in June. I'm having a wonderful time reading in July. And once again, I would love if you support our Bookworms zine. You can't get a digital version of this. This is analog only. You have it mailed to your home. We're going to have stickers that'll start coming with it as well. Regina and I talked a lot about the future of Bookworms, and a lot of cool things are about to happen. But these are super, super limited editions. And we have Will Erickson, who wrote an article in here. He worked on Paperbacks from Hell with Grady Hendrix. So there's an article by Will Erickson in this one. And I said this is our biggest one yet. 4 horror fiction stories, some great articles in here, nonfiction articles, lots of fun and games, great art. Bookworms Horror Zine, bookwormshorror.etsy.com. I'll put it all in the show notes, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for hanging out.
Peace.